Hello, this is Christy, and welcome back to a new Xara Designer Pro tutorial. In this tutorial, I would like to answer a question on my YouTube channel. Someone asked how they could put objects behind other objects in a photo in Xara Designer Pro. Now, Xara Designer Pro doesn't have masking tools per se. It has a few masking tools, but they don't really separate objects automatically unless you really try very hard. So what I'm going to show you is a manual process, but it's much more accurate than using automated tools. Now, of course, you can remove backgrounds in various other software, even online or in Photoshop. But what we want to do is we want to do this process natively in Xara Designer Pro. And I'm going to show you how you can isolate objects so that you can put other objects behind them and make them look like, give them depth and make the objects look like they're, popping off the page. So I have this poster here. I want to design maybe, for example, a poster for a botanical garden. So I have these photos that I would like to use in my graphics, in my poster. And I want to make the text on the left here that you see. I want to make the text sort of go behind some of these objects. Like, for example, this squirrel here and this flower at the top there. Maybe I want to lay it out in such a way that all of these animals kind of show up on screen here. And they appear sort of in front of the text. So the text kind of looks integrated into the background, into the layout. And I want to keep the flexibility of editing the text, moving it around, changing the size without affecting the whole scenario, the whole idea. So let me show you how to do this. It's very easy to do. Basically, we want to create masks for the objects in the photos that we want. So one first tip, you want to make sure that you do not resize. Well, you don't separate the object from the photo it's in. If you want to keep parts of the photo and then put the object behind it, you want to make sure that you keep them all in the same position. So what I mean by that is this. Let's zoom in here and let's suppose I want to put this squirrel, let's see this one here, right there. And I want this text to be behind the squirrel. Obviously, people can see what what the text says. So, but let's suppose that I want to put the squirrel sort of in this area. How can I actually put the squirrel in front of the text and not put the whole, because if I put the photo in front, Control F, I can't see the text because of all this other area that I have here. So if I put it in the back there, you can see that I actually have to mask out parts of this squirrel here, the head, the ear, the back, and parts of the tail. So because I want to keep this flexibility, I don't actually want to just cut out those bits. I don't want to cut those bits out from the text. What I want to do is I want to isolate the squirrel so that it's on its own on the picture, but keep the picture. So this is very easy to do. You're actually making a copy of this photo and we're going to mask it, right? So the first thing to do is Control C, Control V to make a copy of the photo. And then I can use the arrow keys to just get it back into place. Now, if that's not very accurate, you can just select both of the photos, Control Shift L, and align both of them centrally like so. So now they're both in the same location. And now let's cut this squirrel out. And the way that I like to cut things in Xara is using the shape tool. And I'm going to just create a shape around the squirrel, right? Now, if you only needed to do this with a person, for example, if you have a person and you just want to put like a piece of text behind their head, for example, you would just need to isolate the head and make a copy of that, mask it, and put it on top. But I want to have the flexibility of moving this squirrel around and the text behind it. I may not decide on this exact position, so I want to isolate the entire squirrel. So this is how to do it. On the left here, go to the shape tool and choose this one, shape tool, by pressing F4. Don't use the pencil and freehand and brush tool, whatever this is, because it's not very accurate because you're going to have to use your mouse a lot. So I'm going to use the shape tool here and just zoom in close to this squirrel. You can zoom in very close, actually. Now, this image is a little blurry, so don't worry about the blurriness. So I'm just going to click on, let's start here on the back. So just click here and create a line like this. And if it helps you to see it better, you can change the outline of this line to something very bright, like purple, right? And then keep going, Xara is going to keep the position of the last node, so you can keep adding nodes like this, you see? Now, of course, the back of this squirrel is not straight. So if I click on here, just connect the two dots, the 2 points, and then you can arch the line by just clicking on the line itself and pushing it up like this until it matches exactly the curve you want to go. This is again here a bit, just make it a little more flexible. And here again, it's okay if you sort of eat away at the object a little bit, just cut between inside of it, because you don't have perfect separation of the object in the picture. So you can mask all of the extra areas yourself by just cutting into the object a little bit. Now you can see the tail here, and I don't really want to make this tutorial about the way to crop the object, but the tail is a little, it's got the hair strands and everything, so maybe you want to create a better cut by just going like this, zigzags. And remember, this image is actually going to be on top of pretty much the original image. So I don't think you need to do very, very accurate cuts. And another advantage of this method of cutting is that if you are not happy with a certain area in the picture, you can go and adjust the mask later. So, you know, I'm going to just go silly here. I'm just going to create a zigzag like this on the tail of this squirrel. It really doesn't matter for this purpose of this tutorial. So I'm not, you know, concerned about a very, very accurate cut right there. Okay, so let's say this is a bit blurry because I used my portrait shooting mode on my phone to just add a bit of depth of field here. Normally with a normal camera, if you want to do these types of cuts, you know, it helps if your image is kind of sharp. But, you know, for the purpose of this example, I'm just going to go very eyeballing here, very, very inaccurate like this. Here we go. We're back at this squirrel. Let's do the leg here. Just click and bend your line like this. Just click and bend. And if you discover that you do a very, very quick job of this, and you want to go back, like I said, you can go back and adjust it, even add nodes, extra nodes, just to refine your shape. But, you know, I'm just going to go really, really fast in here because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So like, for example, here you see, I'm not able to bend this very accurately. So you can pull these handles like this to shape your line between the two nodes. This is called Bezier nodes editing. So just, you know, you can do it as accurately as you like. And if you decide that you need to add some nodes in the middle here, double click on it to add a new node. And there you go. You have a new extra node to add a more adjustment to your cut. So anyway, make sure you click on the last node before you continue so that your line continues. Okay, I'm just going to show here. Normally, if this is going to be a small image, people might not even be able to realize the imperfections. Okay, so sometimes you need to zoom out to notice the object where it is. Just go like this. So this is the way to cut an object and just create a shape around it. And then we will use another tool in Xara to actually extract and separate the object from the background, which is again a tool I recommend, not the background removal, because that is not very accurate and it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. Just use normal shapes, normal basic shapes in Xara. We're nearly there now. Okay, that's the head. Let's suppose it's like this. And let's go up around the ear. Oh, I forgot the ear there. So look, if I forgot that ear, just double click, and just create new nodes. And then you can just click on the line to refine your shape. Okay, so let's connect this line with the first dot node, and there you go. This is the shape of the squirrel. So now what I have done here, I've covered the squirrel with the shape that I want to use as the mask. So this is very easy now. We have the shape here. We have the shape. The color doesn't matter because we're now going to hold down the shift key, select the shape, and then the picture. Select the picture in the background. Make sure you don't shift the picture yet or the shape because you're obviously going to move it away from the squirrel. Right click on this and select Combine Shapes and Intersect Shapes. This is what it's going to do. It's going to create the mask and put the squirrel inside of this mask, exactly in position. Now you think it's disappeared, but actually what you're seeing here is the background image, the copy of the image, and the squirrel that we have copied and masked. So if I now look, my squirrel is now a separate object, which I can put on top of stuff. But what I want to do, I don't want to move it away from the background squirrel because I need it to be in place. So Control Z to undo. All right. So now let's see. If I now select this squirrel that I have isolated, if it helps you to see it better, you can right click and give it an outline. Set line color like this and give it like a 4 point. So you can see now this is the squirrel that I've cut. And of course it sits on top of the image that was originally there. So now I can select both of these and watch this. You see how the squirrel is in front of the text. So the text can be moved now and positioned anywhere you like. When you're happy with the positioning of the text, of course, you can remove the outline from that squirrel. So this is effect number one. I'm going to click on the picture to move it all the way to the background, and I'm going to select my text and move it sort of there so that I still see the tail on top of the text, but I can read most of the text just fine. So now let's do the same thing on the other flower here. So I want this flower to be maybe instead of the letter O there. So I want it to be on the letter O. Now, of course, I don't want to keep the background of that flower in this example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut the flower out. Okay. And then I'm going to resize it and using the shift key like this and just put it instead of the letter O like that. But that's actually going to also allow me to put it on top of the other letters in the text, the Sheffield word and the Gardens word. So see what I'm doing here? It's the same exact effect, but this time I'm not going to edit it in place. I'm just going to do it on this original photo. So just so you know, in Xara, when you cut images like this, they don't actually destroy the original image like Photoshop. If you open a photo and crop it and save it, it's going to replace the image. Xara doesn't do that. All of these photos that I'm playing with, you can find them in your photo gallery on the side here. These are the original photos and they are imported into your document, and you can make as many copies as you like of them in your document, cut them up and chop them up in any way you like, apply effects to them. They will be untouched. You can always, if you mess it up, you can always drag it again from this bitmap gallery onto your document. There you go. And you have another copy of it to play with. So just so you know, this is the way that Xara organizes the images and everything else. Plus, whatever you do in here does not affect your original images on disk anyway. They're just imported in here. So let's cut out this flower with the same procedure. You know, just zoom in very closely. And I'm actually going to speed this up, but you know, just to tell you, use the shape tool again, the shape tool here, and you zoom in any way you like to get to the appropriate level of zoom that you feel comfortable. Click on one point, click on another point. You've created a line. Now you bend that line. And if you need to make it more visible, you can, of course, change the color. It is purple right now, but it's kind of close to red. So I'm going to make this line white. Right click on down here and say set line color like so. So now I can see clearly what I am cutting. So you just go from node to node, depending on how accurate your cut you want it to be. I'm just going to, again, go very fast around here, and I'm just going to adjust the parts that are really, and you know, like this one here, for example, you can see a bit of white there because of the leaf. It's kind of burnt a little bit or torn. But if you have an object in your photo that has like a bad anti-aliasing on it, or it has some sort of flares or something, if you can afford to cut into the object, it's always good to cut into the object a little bit, because that gives you a much sharper edge of the cut. So in Photoshop, you can do this, but you can zoom in. You have to zoom in and really delete all of the white pixels or whatever color they are. But in Xara, you can just click inside the shape a little bit and just stretch the line. So you notice how I am leaving that white little color on the outside a little bit. So that's going to give me a very sharp cut when I get to that point, instead of having my object with kind of a white halo around it because I've cut it too much on the outside. So this is very nice, and it's actually a pleasure to just go around and define your object like this. And this is the nice thing about it, because it gives you the flexibility of always going back on your work if you're not happy, without having to redo the whole thing again, you know? So, you know what? I'm going to actually stop talking, and I'm going to speed this video up here, because I'm not actually going to teach you anything new in here. I'm just going to go through the whole process and cut this flower out using this shape. So I'm just going to first create the shape around the flower, and it's okay if you just cut into it, like I said, because people don't really know what the flower shape was originally anyway. So if that doesn't matter to you, then just keep on cutting it like that, create the shape, and I will resume the video once I've gone to the end of this shape. All right, here you go. So my shape is now covering the entire surface of the flower. Like I said, I don't really care about anything else around here, or the leaves, or, you know, you can cut out this leaf and turn it into an object of its own and just kind of put it around the flower if you want to do that. But again, now I'm selecting my shape, shift to click on the picture, right click and say combine shapes, intersect shapes. What this does, it crops the image inside of the shape that you created, and it creates a mask for it. So intersect shapes like this. Look at this beautiful flower all on its own. And let me show you, if I zoom in here, look how sharp these edges are. Because I've gone into the image a little bit, I've made a very nice and sharp cut. So this is going to look great if you're printing this on a larger poster or something like that. So now this is a single object on its own. And let me give you another tip. If you didn't know this, once you've masked a photo inside of a shape like this, it doesn't mean that the photo inside of the shape is lost. Actually, if you go to the fill tool on the left and you shift this fill here, because what it does is Xara creates a bitmap fill inside of that shape, which happens to have the photo that you put in there in the first place. But if I zoom in here, look, and if I move this, you can see the rest of the photo is still in there in that mask. You just don't see it because it's masked, right? So in case you didn't know this. So now I'm just going to take this flower, a separate object, and put it on top of the O letter like this. And I don't want to see the letter O. I mean, depending on your artistic choices, you can put it or not on top, but I'm going to put it on top like this. The flower is the letter O in this situation. I'm going to make my text white, actually, or maybe light gray like this. So just to show you another effect here, you can use drop shadow. You can go to the drop shadow tool here, shadow tool, and you can create a drop shadow on the flower itself, which you can then move it around, and you can change the curve profile and the blur. You can change the transparency to make it darker, and like that. So you can see now the flower is the letter O on top of the words. I'm going to just put Sheffield here in a different color. You can actually pick colors from your objects to better integrate your objects in your scene. And let's choose something like green on this maybe. All right, this might be hard to see on a different background, depending on what you want to do with your squirrel and everything else. But I'm going to make it light green like this. Okay, there we go. And now, this is it. This is the effect. Like, I'm going to remove the line color from the squirrel. And actually, you know what? Let's make this like a dark gray like this, because I can't see this squirrel. So as you can see here, I have put text behind objects. I have cut elements out of pictures, and I have put them onto my scene, all with just shapes, just the combine tool in Xara, and there you have it. Now, of course, this is not a finished product here. So if I choose not to have the background anymore, I can just click on this and remove it. And I can move this squirrel sort of here like that, just flying or jumping or whatever it's doing. And of course, now, because of the background color, it is, of course, more obvious that I've really rushed the cutting out process. So what you can do to fix this is, if you zoom in here, like, for example, say, I don't like this black part here, which is on the leg. and you can just go select this object, select the shape tool, and you have all of your lines here available for you to edit. So click on this node, pull it in, click on this node, pull it in a bit, and then you can look, the shape has gone. If I do it this way, look, you can see the picture through it. But if I put it back in, I have now removed that black sort of outline. You can do the same everywhere. You need to add a little bit of corrective. You can even select multiple nodes and move them all at once like this. So you see now my leg looks better on there because it doesn't have that black area. And here, if I want to make this cut better, I can just double click here, double click again, and just insert that little corner there like that to cut into the leg any way you like. Just move these nodes around until you're happy with the shape of the cut, for example. And you can do the same here to refine the edges. So this is how you do it. Once you understand how the mechanics of masking work in Xara, anything can be combined with something else. And photos, when you combine them, they don't actually cut them. They don't lose the pixels. They just create a mask. So the mask is completely flexible. The image inside the mask is completely flexible. So you can use this to isolate objects from the background, put stuff behind them, and create nice and interesting effects, just like this one here, with just a few simple steps. So thank you again for your time. I hope you've learned something and enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, I invite you to subscribe right now. And if you have any questions about any future tutorials, leave them in the comments and I'd be happy to make a tutorial for your particular question. And until next time, I will see you.